Throughout history, many individuals have shaped the world: kings, scientists, philosophers, and revolutionaries. Yet one name repeatedly appears at the very top of global influence lists: Muhammad of Arabia. In 1978, American historian Michael H. Hart published The 100, a ranking of the most influential persons in history. After years of research, he placed Muhammad at number 1, not because of faith, but because of impact. So what made him stand above all others? Muhammad was born in the 6th century in Arabia, a region fragmented by tribal conflict and social inequality. Society was driven by power, lineage, and survival. Women had limited rights. Slavery was widespread, and justice favored the strong. From this environment emerged a man who would go on to reshape not only religion, but law, ethics, leadership, and social order. He did not inherit power. He did not command armies at the beginning. He did not come from wealth or royalty. Yet within 23 years, he united warring tribes and laid the foundations for a civilization that would influence vast parts of the world. What makes Muhammad historically unique is the breadth of his influence. He was simultaneously a spiritual teacher, a political leader, a lawgiver, a military commander, and a social reformer. Rarely in history has one individual succeeded across so many domains, and even more rarely, with lasting results. As a leader, he promoted simplicity and accountability. Despite authority, he lived modestly and emphasized responsibility over privilege. As a military leader, historical records show he introduced ethical limits to warfare, protecting non-combatants, and discouraging unnecessary destruction. As a lawgiver, he advocated equality before the law, stating clearly that social status should not shield anyone from justice. These principles were revolutionary in his time. Equally significant was his approach to conflict and power. When he eventually gained control of Mecca, the city that had once rejected and persecuted him, he chose reconciliation over revenge. Instead of punishment, he offered forgiveness. This decision changed the course of Arabian history and demonstrated a leadership style rooted in restraint and long-term vision. Muhammad left behind no empire in the conventional sense, no palace, no personal wealth. What he left instead were ideas. Ideas about dignity, social responsibility, ethical leadership, and accountability before a higher moral standard. As a leader, Prophet Muhammad exemplified a rare combination of authority and humility. Despite holding ultimate religious, political, and social leadership in Medina, he consistently promoted simplicity, accountability, and responsibility over privilege. His leadership was not defined by power, but by restraint. Numerous hadiths describe how the Prophet lived with remarkable modesty, even when resources and authority were available to him. According to a narration in Sahih al-Bukhari, Aisha reported that the family of Muhammad never ate their fill of bread made from wheat for 3 consecutive days until he passed away. This was not due to poverty alone, but a conscious choice. He could have lived comfortably, yet he chose restraint as a moral example. Another hadith narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab describes the Prophet resting on a simple mat that left marks on his body. Umar wept upon seeing this and said, "O Messenger of God, the kings of Persia and Rome live in luxury, while you live like this." The Prophet replied, "Are you not pleased that for them is this world, and for us is the hereafter?" This statement reflects a leadership philosophy rooted not in material dominance, but in long-term moral accountability. Despite his position, Prophet Muhammad rejected symbols of superiority. He mended his own clothes, milked his own animals, and served his household. In a hadith recorded in Musnad Ahmad, it is reported that when asked what the Prophet did at home, Aisha said, he would serve his family, and when it was time for prayer, he would go out to pray. Leadership, in his view, did not excuse one from responsibility, it intensified it. Accountability was central to his governance. He held himself to the same standards as others, often higher. One powerful example is found in a hadith where he declared, "By God, if Fatima the daughter of Muhammad were to steal, I would cut off her hand." This was not harshness, but a clear rejection of privilege. No family tie, no social status, and no emotional bond could override justice. The Prophet also warned leaders against misusing authority. In Sahih Muslim, he said, "Each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible for his flock." Leadership, in this framework, is not ownership but trust, a responsibility for which one will be held accountable before God. Even when offered wealth and power by the leaders of Mecca in exchange for abandoning his mission, he refused. According to historical reports, he responded with words to the effect that even if they placed the sun in his right hand and the moon in his left, he would not abandon his responsibility. This illustrates a leadership model anchored in principle rather than privilege. In essence, Prophet Muhammad's simplicity was not weakness, and his humility was not symbolic. It was a deliberate moral stance. His life demonstrated that true leadership is not measured by how much one possesses, but by how faithfully one serves. In an age where power often distances leaders from accountability, his example remains a timeless standard, one where authority deepens responsibility and simplicity becomes strength. Today, more than 2 billion people, across cultures and continents, model aspects of their daily lives on his teachings. From governance and law to personal conduct and community ethics, his influence remains active, not historical. So why is Muhammad often ranked as the most influential person in history? Because influence is not measured by fame alone, or military conquest, or intellectual brilliance. True influence is measured by how deeply ideas shape human behavior, and how long they endure. By that measure, Muhammad's impact is unparalleled. Not merely as a religious figure, but as a transformative force in human civilization. And that is why, centuries later, his legacy continues to shape the world we live in.